Hello guys, I would like to address Steve Dangle's recent free agency recap day one video. There are three things that I would like to look at here. Number one is Ryan Reaves. So the argument in Steve's video is that Ryan Reaves is different from Simmonds, Clifford, and Martin. He's not just Simmonds 2.0 because he's 40 pounds heavier. Now, just being heavier does not mean that he's not playing the same role. He's an elite fighter, he's the best fighter, doesn't matter. The point of the fight is to protect teammates and to spark the club to play harder. Simmonds did that, Clifford did that, Martin did that. Now, the other point Steve makes is vibes. I agree that the Toronto Maple Leafs vibes over the last 5 to 6 years have been pathetic, mostly, and soft. We all know this. But the argument that we need Ryan Reaves to fix it is flatulent because one player cannot change an entire organization. Least of all Ryan Reaves. You might get an argument out of people for a Wendell Clark, but that's a topic for another day. But a Ryan Reaves or a Simmonds or a Clifford, did Simmonds change this team? Not a chance. Not a chance. Against Tampa last year, against Montreal, he came out and had a fight. The team didn't bother showing up. No, I don't buy it. The other point is, in terms of vibes, is they come down from the top, and really the biggest question at the moment is, was it Dubas, was it Shanahan, was it both of them? What is Treliving going to do about it? So vibes come from particular things. Fighting is one part. Ryan Reaves, okay. But we're looking at digging for pucks, winning pucks, hitting, agitating, skating hard, and trying, doing whatever it takes to play and doing whatever it takes to win. Does Ryan Reaves solve that problem for the Leafs? No. And I think it's irresponsible to try and argue that it does. However, interestingly, I think that that argument plays into what Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment wants. And that is for you to get excited about a new player and all his fights that are going to happen this year. Because that keeps you watching, that keeps you spending your money on merchandise, and that keeps you going to the games. It's an old story, one that I've watched since the 1980s as a kid. So I don't buy it. I didn't buy it with Simmonds, I didn't buy it with Clifford, I don't buy it with Reaves. There needs to be an organizational change. If you simply go back and look at the 92, 93, 93, 94 Leafs, and watch them play, watch Game 7 against LA. Yeah, it was Game 6 wasn't the last game with the high stick. Watch Game 7. Do go back and watch every single player on that team leave everything on the ice. That is not this team we have now. Okay, so Kerfoot. I assume Steve sighed when he said Toronto is the leading team to re-sign Kerfoot. I think Kerfoot has gotten a bad rap in Toronto. Has he been outstanding? No. Can he be better? Yes. But as a third-line center who scores 10 goals a year, he's better than Kampf, he's better than Acciari. In a way, I'd rather have Acciari on the team, but that's another story. But Kerfoot, as a third-line center, can score 10 to 20 goals. He did it 2 years in a row with Colorado before Dubas traded for him, giving away you-know-who. So I think, it's easy to look down on Kerfoot and blame Kerfoot because he had a dry spell last year. And I don't think it's fair. I think the way the team should go is give him a low-ball contract, give tight negotiations, play him on the third line, and then switch Holmberg with Kampf. because some of these young guys you're bringing up aren't good enough, like McCann, or Lafferty doesn't score, McCann doesn't score, the fourth line doesn't score. Like, what are you doing, right? So I think it's a good idea to keep Kerfoot. He's value for money, which I think is something that people forget. Success is value for money in a cap era. So if we can get 15 goals out of Kerfoot on the third line and we can find some decent partners for him who can pass, who can score, 10 to 15 goal guys is what we need, not these Lafferty, McCann, Camp 0 goal guys. Okay, that's my Kerfoot rant. Finally, Dubas. The argument goes, and not just with Steve, but with quite a few people in the comments that I've seen, quite a few, I mean a few, that Dubas is not at fault for the cap going up. And I strongly disagree with this one. Now, if you take it in isolation and you can say, it is true that nobody saw COVID coming. That's right. But we have something in management called disaster management. So you need to, as a manager in any business, mitigate the effects of a disaster. You need to prepare. You need to know disasters can happen. Be it losing a top player, be it not being able to make a trade, whatever it is. So when you make assumptions of money being there in the future in order to sign a player, you're playing a risky game. It's a risk, right? And if it goes wrong, your job then is to respond and recover. So first of all, let's talk about the risk. You take risks that are necessary when you're backed into a corner. Watch James Bond films, for example. You don't take those risks when it's unnecessary. And my argument here is that signing John Tavares was completely unnecessary. We had you know who. You know who got suspended twice? For me, that's a management problem. That's a coaching problem. That is not a player problem. Now, assuming that it is a player problem, the argument that we had to get rid of him is also incorrect because Colorado won with him. And he actually came back and scored a very important goal. So now you say, well, Colorado was stacked. Well, you have to be stacked to win the cup, right? I mean, I think Florida showed us that. You need more than two lines. So now, let's say you had to get rid of Kadri. Why get rid of Kadri for Kerfoot and Barrie? Why? The argument went at the time, and people forget this, go look it up in the papers, that Barrie was going to push this team over the top in the playoffs. And it was okay that he was a one-year rental. And I said that is utterly ridiculous. By the end of this year, we're not going to win anything with this team as it is. He'll be gone. And we're left with Kerfoot, who you all seem to hate. Kerfoot is, in the Leafs, what he was with Colorado, right? So why did we not trade for a comparable center who could play the second line and didn't have a problem with getting suspended? Why did we need to get a rental and a Kerfoot, who's a third line center? Why? It was a bad trade. It was a bad idea. And it wasn't necessary to replace Kadri with an 11.5 or whatever it is $1 million contract. So now we move on to response and recovery. Well, how do you recover? The problem is when you sign a player at $11 million for 8 years and then give him a no trade clause, you're backing yourself into a corner for no reason. And we have 2 more years of it, and you can all see as JT slows down a little bit, still a 30-goal guy, that it's not ideal. And we didn't win anything with him. And signing him put us up against the cap, as I said, and we all know we've not been able to build the rest of the team out properly because there's too much money in the top four, and the top four don't perform in the playoffs. But you can't do anything about it because you gave them all no trade clauses. So don't tell me that nobody could have seen it coming, therefore it's not his fault. It's a nonsense argument, straight up. Okay? That's it. That's what I think about that argument. And let's hope that Treliving is pulling the strings and not Shanny. Because I think Shanny was pulling the strings with Dubas, and what a mess. You've wasted these three generational talents we drafted. Let's hope. Let's hope.